Thomas Hobbes attempted a scientific theory of politics. He was acquainted with Galileo and Descartes. Okay. He was inspired by scientific method, particularly of Galileo. And he wanted to derive political theory from the basics of science. Okay. He was influenced by methods of physics and geometry. And he thought from this he should arrive at what is human nature. What is human nature? And from what is human nature, he thought he should arrive the nature of state. Okay. He thinks in terms of body, motion, okay, brain, and some movements in the brain. So, in an analytical way, he thinks he derives or he has derived and has derived human nature. Okay. And like Galileo discarded Aristotle's politics, Hobbes thought he would discard Aristotle's politics. So, like Galileo discarded Aristotle's science, Hobbes thought he would discard Aristotle's politics. At that time, there was a lot of civil war was going on between the royalists and Puritans. This had a religious dimension. But Hobbes rejected both Puritans and royalists in their religious reasoning. He rejected religion. Okay. And during that war, during Cromwell's rule, he fled to France and worked as mathematics tutor to the future King Charles II. So he was on the side of the royalists. And he wrote this book, Leviathan, in 1651. But Leviathan, though Hobbes was politically on the side of the royalists, Hobbes' reasons were different from the reasons of royalists. For example, royalists believed that king had divine right to rule, but Hobbes rejected. Hobbes built a theory of politics from basics of physics, mathematics, without reference to God. Okay. So that is what he did. Since he did not accept divine origin of kings, after this book was published, he was banished from Charles Court. Okay. So, what did he find to be the basic nature of human being? What did he find to be the basic nature of human being? To Hobbes, man is essentially desire and power oriented. To Hobbes, basic nature of human being is power and desire. So, after all that scientific reasoning, Hobbes arrived at the conclusion that man is power seeking and always desiring. And this power seeking leads to conflict with other, like this. So there is an endless conflict among people, because of which they would need and ask for state or sovereign. This is the argument. Desiring and power seeking men constantly quarreling with one another find impossible to live without giving their power to sovereign in return for the safety. So, Hobbes calls this kind of a thing as state of nature. Okay. So in a state of nature, man is like this, and they give their power to sovereign to rule them and give safety. And this is supposed to be the contract between people and the sovereign. Okay. And also among themselves. So this is a social contract theory of Hobbes, which explains the source, duty, and obligation of sovereign. So this is the theory of sovereignty that Hobbes proposes. So let us see what he has said about man's nature. So what he said. Always power seeking. I put for a general inclination of all mankind a perpetual and restless desire of power after power that ceases only in death. And the cause of this is not always that a man hopes for a better intensive delight than he has already attained to, or that he cannot be content with a moderate power, but because he cannot assure the power and means to live well, which he has present, without acquisition of more. This statement is one of the important proposals in the school of realism, that man seeks power, more power, and more power. Why so? Because he cannot retain this power unless he seeks more of it. Okay. And this is his essential nature. That is what Hobbes is saying. Next, the object of man's desire is not to enjoy once only and for one instant of time, but to assure forever the way of his future desire. So power not for once, but forever. That is the nature of desire. And then these desires are not wrong in themselves. The desires and the passions of men are in themselves no sin. So he is rejecting the concept of sin as put forward by Christian political thinkers like Augustine. So he is rejecting religion here. These are not matter of sin at all. And in all this, man has them because it is the way he is born with, and he is not free to be otherwise. Here he says, neither is the freedom of willing or not willing greater in man than in other living creatures. So man is not free not to have them. He is free only to the extent that other animals also have, which they don't have. Okay. And you want evidence whether man is like this? That always distrusting people? Okay. So he says, what opinion he has of his fellow subjects when he writes armed? Why he writes armed? Because he can't trust others, of his fellow citizens. When he locks his doors, because others can steal, and of his children and servants, and when he locks his chest, does he not there as much accuse mankind by his actions as I do by my words? So he is saying that man doesn't trust others because they will steal, they will do all kinds of things. So man is basically not good. He's saying that he's assuming what anybody believes. Okay. And this is given that the man is like this. So what will the world be? That is, what will be state of nature left to such a man? He says, in such a condition, there is no place for industry because man is like this. There is no place for industry because the fruit thereof is uncertain. If you work hard and if you earn, others can take it off. And consequently, no culture of the earth, no navigation, nor use of the commodities that may be imported by sea. No account of time, no arts, no letters, no society, and which is worst of all, continual fear and danger of violent death, and the life of man is solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short. So, man is power-seeking, fighting, brutish. So, is always fighting, because of which no society is possible. It's brutish. Because he's brutish. Okay. And because of which he will go for a king or a government. Okay. So this is the theory. But the question is this understanding of man and state of nature true? Okay. Is man brutish? Okay. But the evidence shows that Hobbes' idea is not correct. It is not correct in many ways. Number one is, to the question, is man brutish? There is a brutish elements in him. Elements. But there are also noble, cooperative elements in him. If you are calling this as bad, this is good. So man is both bad and good. How can one assume that he is only bad in state of nature? Okay. More importantly, where is this man who would always be ready to fight with others? It is not a historical event. Hobbes was not saying it was a historical event. But what was he then suggesting? If it was a thought experiment, what is the validity of the thought experiment? Because what is seen is that even before becoming a man, you have seen groups, cooperative groups, even among animals. What is factual is that people are born into cooperative groups. There's a group of monkeys. How does this happen? The entire culture, or actually a species cannot survive. A species can't survive. A species can't survive without cooperation. This is the first point. So it is not that brutish men were there at one time. There was nothing like that. Man is brutish as well as cooperative. That's how evolution took place. Species can't survive without cooperation. Okay. So in these cooperative groups, some would even be willing to give their life for others in defending that group. And some, that is why some have that altruism, sacrifice element. Are there? So human evolution is not possible. Animal evolution is not possible without cooperation, without altruism. Okay. So empirically, animals were in groups, and as a group, they evolved into humans. A monkey had cooperative ability, and when evolution took place and men evolved, man had cooperation ability. So humans did not emerge at once, they evolved. Remember, Hobbes wrote this book in 1650 and Darwin came around 200 years later. So from Darwin we knew that cooperation was essential for the survival, and if everybody is a brute, that population cannot continue. If every life form against every other life form, community is not possible. So animals would cooperate, and then as a group they fight for others. Within the group they are willing to give their lives for others. That's how evolution took place. So the idea that the man was at one time brutish and human beings were one against another was logically not possible, historically did not exist like that. Okay, so out of that they needed a state is also a wrong argument. And before we end, let us see if man was actually brutish, okay, like this, and to contain it, a state is not enough. So to control man simply through power is simply not enough. It's not possible. What is happening is that man has both cooperation plus brutish is both, that is one, and man is born into certain social code. Okay, there is a restraint, there is a socialization, and on this state is coming. If man is only brutish and without any socialization, without any restraint, then state is not possible. State cannot really control man. So Hobbes' idea of either human nature or how control is becoming possible is very, very clearly wrong. We will examine what kind of state Hobbes proposed.